Well, me and Pat take a couple of days off and all the news drops. Zach LaVine is going to be out for the season. We're going to talk about what that could mean for his future with the Bulls and overall value. The Warriors want Alex Caruso, yeah, but they're going to have to take a number because we're not trading them. And the Bulls finished the week 1-2. We're going to talk about how they finished last week and how they can start out this week much better. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are Locked On Bulls, your daily podcast on the Chicago Bulls, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls, member of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. That's Pat the Designer, host and creator of the Windy City Breeze, and host of the Chicago Bears podcast over at ESPN 1000. As you can tell, my co-host is tired. He's exhausted right now. I'm Haize, host and creator of Chicago Bulls and Chicago Bears Central. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, of course, do apply. Now that we got the business out the way, Pat, apparently we can't take off.
Zach LaVine, we kind of knew that. That's on us. Like,
yeah, that's true. Zach LaVine is officially him and his team decided to go for season-ending surgery on his foot, which has kind of opened up a bunch of conversation because it came out later on that the Bulls and Pistons were still actively talking about a Zach LaVine trade on a new iteration of the deal that was originally rumored. Yeah. That, of course, now is going to come to a halt with the injury concerns. But now people are saying and asking themselves, was this something orchestrated by Zach and Clutch Sports to kind of avoid a trade to Detroit? Now, we're not reporting on that in any case. This is a little meathead. We just talking about the situation overall. How you feeling about it, Pat?
I mean, it's you got to think there's something a little to it, right? Like they had to come to Rich Paul and was like, Detroit is surgery. And he was like, nobody wants Detroit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know if that's the case, though. I don't think that the tough part is you have to speculate it because of the length of Zach LaVine's contract, right? If they trade for you, you will be in Detroit probably for the foreseeable future. It's not like they're instantly going to flip you again next year for some assets, right? So if that's not a situation that he wants to be a part of, I think that is something that could have been a conversation. I'm not saying that is a conversation, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility where you go, listen, you're messed up, you're hurt. I think the conversation more leans to nobody believes you're a winning player. You have to come back differently. But this is going to be tough now because I think that with this happening, the shift to the team that we've talked about needing to happen this season is going to happen. And I would even go as far to say not the caliber of player being the same, but we are heading towards territory of when Derrick Rose went down the second time and Jimmy Butler started to become Jimmy Butler. Because remember, then it was just like, yo, wait a minute. Derrick's been a little bit injury prone. You start to kind of convince yourself of things of like, well, we have a future path. Now, if Garpax was smarter, we have a future path here with a player that is putting up great numbers night in, night out. With Zach LaVine going down now, Kobe White coming out and instantly having offensive impact like we saw last night in that Kings game. I think that this is kind of the transition we're going to see. The biggest question is now coming back, is Zach LaVine going to step into a different role? Because with the second half of the season still to play here, I air quoted second half because of where we are in the season. There's a lot of room for Kobe White to basically cement a stamp on this team for where he should be on the future of this team.
I mean, I think he was doing that anyway. But I mean, this does give him that leeway now to not look over your shoulder and wonder if Zach LaVine's going to come back at all this season. And so that is definitely a big part of it. What do you think about the part? Or let's talk about it for a second. Like, to me, even if this is orchestrated by Clutch, the reason why this is a dangerous move for them, in my opinion, is that you were questioned on three things about Zach LaVine, right? One was the contract. That's not going away. The contract isn't changing, so you have no control over that. but how do you impact winning and can you stay healthy? This puts Zach in a unique place where all those questions around those two things can get even more serious. And let me lay this out real quick is that, okay, Zach LaVine, he's getting another season into surgery. That right there is going to add questions to how healthy can he stay? Then on top of that, if this team continues winning while he's out at a decent rate, we know they're probably not going to finish higher than 9th. Maybe they can get to 8th, whatever. But if they look strong in the way that they finish the season, those questions about winning are going to become louder. And unless he's traded in the offseason, which I think is unlikely with the surgery, if he comes back and he is healthy at the start of the season, and if the Bulls don't look better or are at the same as what they ended this season on, everybody's going to point to it and blame it on Zach LaVine.
I think it's the only option you have, though. I don't think you're wrong in anything that you just said, but I think here's the thing. It really does come down to the team that wanted you are teams that basically realize they can't get free agents. Those are the only teams
and that's what I mean. I don't think this changes much for him unless he comes back next season and he is playing within the system. The Bulls are rocking and rolling. They get out to night. I don't think that it changes the teams that were interested in you. All it may be now is it has allowed Detroit Pistons 6 more months to sit there and be like, okay, let's see what's going to happen.
Well, and I think here's the thing, though, right? You have to come back and change the narrative on at least one of those things. If it's the health situation, I don't think that changes where you are much here. But I would hope that this is a situation where Zach LaVine looks at himself and goes, yes, I believe that I'm this level of player, but this is what the market is dictating for me. I've gotten my money here. Maybe I do need to come back and take on a different role or come back and, just fit into Billy Donovan's system, however that is. Now we all got questions on whatever that system is, but I do think that, to me, right, there's a lot of questions on the impact for winning, and that's the number one thing, because guess what? If teams believe that he can impact winning, his contract's not crazy.
That's true.
His contract's crazy. His contract's crazy now.
Per the questions that are going on around him.
Right.
You eliminate one out of those two, or God forbid, at least lessen both of them. And like I said, Zach LaVine would have been moved by now. If his contract was, I say, anywhere between 20 to 30 million, he probably would have been moved. The fact that it's where it is at 40 million, it asks those questions. Zach LaVine had a $22 million contract. The Bulls could have moved him the moment that he asked for a trade.
Yeah, for sure. But I also think, right, teams that feel like you can add to us going for a championship don't care how much they're paying you. They care to an extent, but for the most part,
I think they're going to care a little bit more than what they have historically. That is the part that I think is going to change it. Historically, yes, I don't think teams that are championship level would have cared, but now that it becomes more restrictive, you can't aggregate salaries, and you're more restricted on how you can trade draft picks. That's a lot. That's pretty serious for teams that are in that second tax apron for a while.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, right, like you just say, okay, we'll just move on from other pieces that we have here because we just traded for you, right? Like the rationale will be going in on one player to try and get a ring that year will change how you build out your benches moving forward. Will change how you build out the rest of your team, because you'll go, well, we just traded for this $250 million guy. I guess we got to cut the $30 million guy, and that'll be a better player back on the market that you lose. But
that's the thing with the NBA. You can't just cut players. But I will say this.
Moving on from,
for the people who critique the Chicago Bulls and how we don't use all of our mid-level exceptions to avoid the luxury tax, there are going to be a lot more teams operating like the Chicago Bulls. A lot more here recently.
Money's how teams throw money around is going to be a little bit different for sure coming up, except the Boston Celtics, $60 million everywhere.
Yeah, the Golden State Warriors, apparently they don't care what their salary is. As long as they're winning, they'll do anything to win games.
The Warriors said after Steph leaves, the franchise goes bankrupt. We don't care.
We don't care. Yeah, we
move on from it. We send them back to Oakland.
Don't be surprised if they're sold 2 years within Steph and Clay retired.
Yeah, I feel like this is a scenario where what's tough is Zach is heading back to being kind of like he was in Minnesota. Like, you got to prove yourself again. Will he be able to do it? It's not that we don't know what Zach LaVine can do. It's what is the impact of Zach LaVine do that he needs to prove here. And he may have to do that with the Chicago Bulls.
And that's what I think the soonest is Zach, unless the team just doesn't care over the he does workouts. The 6 months, that means he'll be back here, August? So, I mean, That's before training camp. So if teams are willing at that point maybe to do something, I just don't foresee it. I think the earliest Zach LaVine's probably move now, if that even still ends up the outcome, is probably next year's trade deadline. So that means we got a whole another year of Zach LaVine trade talk. Pat, you ready?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it is what it is. It's every year with Zach LaVine, ain't it? Like, but maybe
with some of the previous years, it kind of was like, hey, there's some rumblings, and then it goes away. This year, it's literally been since the second week of the season.
We had a legit deal on the table last year, and now we wish we would have taken it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, next up, we're going to be talking about another player that it seems teams won, and that's Alex Caruso. This time, the Warriors making calls on Alex Caruso. But before we get into that, I got to talk to you guys about a couple of our sponsors, and the first one is LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are the right fit for the right role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast majority of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all the work while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows small businesses are wearing so many hats and may not have the time or resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker than before. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Also got to talk to you guys about BetterHelp. You guys know me and Pat are big advocates of mental health. That's not a joke. That is something we take seriously, both pod-wise and in our personal lives. So make sure you guys you take care of yourselves. And BetterHelp is some place that can help you with that. I do got to remind you guys that this next segment is brought to you by our sponsor, BetterHelp. Sometimes we all need opportunity to get something off our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you. It's important that you let it out, especially to someone who's unbiased on your life. So today, I want to say how I really feel about something. You might even be thinking about the same thing this week. And so with it being the time of year where depression kicks in, make sure you guys are taking care of yourself, and BetterHelp can definitely help you with that. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, Pat. Listen, the teams keep calling and the Bulls keep telling them no. So Casey Johnson reported that the Warriors have made calls on Alex Caruso, and up until this point, the Bulls have turned them away. But do you feel like are the Bulls, like, where do you stand with the whole Alex Caruso thing? You know, we've kind of talked about it, but let's do a temperature check. Do we still sit with the same place that we do, or you think you keep on to Alex Caruso because of what he means for the culture? Or if teams are truly willing to offer 2 first-round picks, are you willing to take that for the player at Alex Caruso, considering like a player like Io stepped up once everybody's back healthy? Do you think it's made that a little bit more flexible? What do you think, Pat?
I think first-round picks have become very much invaluable in a lot of these drafts. Not to say that teams don't want them, but I think there's so many young players in the NBA right now that a lot of teams are like, yeah, I'll take a first round pick. But we see we just saw, who was the player in the Toronto trade? OG Anunoby went for a first round pick, didn't he? No, I'm sorry, Pascal Siakam.
Second round pick. Yeah, Pascal
Siakam ended up going for, multiple first round picks. And teams that are in winning positions don't care as much about the first round picks anymore. Giving them up.
Keep in mind, 2 of those first round picks were for this draft, which were supposed to be a very weak draft.
I get it, yeah. but it's still first round picks. If you're doing your job the right way, you got first round picks. The draft capital, it was like Wemby. And then before that, it was we don't really care about having these top picks. And after that, it was Cade was what, 2 years ago? Right? 3 years
Cade
ago?
was same year as Io. So, 3 years ago.
I mean, Cade was the best player in that draft, and Cade's a nice player. What has it affected? And I think teams are really starting to take note of that. versus having a player on the court that is actually affecting something. When you want to talk about a player affecting winning, Alex Caruso is that player. And I guess it's kind of the conversation that we had before, right? How much do we believe that the Chicago Bulls are willing to move into this next era of whatever this Bulls team is going to be? They've been very insistent on holding on to the exact same team, right? Are we going to see DeMar DeRozan moved? Are we going to see them do something different with Torrey Craig coming back? Is he going to be a player that maybe could be up because people are going to be excited about him? Like, there's a lot of things where it's like, for the past 3 seasons, the Bulls' offense and defensive rating has basically been the same. Are you going to change things? If you're willing to accept some change, then Alex Caruso is a player that you want leading you into that next iteration of change, because I believe that he's a really, really good veteran to have on your team. You know he's going to help young guys along because of his affinity for seeing guys develop, going through the journey he's going through in the NBA, coming from the G League. I just feel like that is a real culture setter type of player, a player that we talk about long-term, right, being a leader of this team. And is that worth more than going out and getting another young player when 3 of the players on your team are under 25 years old right now? And 2 of them you've seen some nice flashes from this season.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that you got to weigh. Like, and I understand the view on it from both sides. Like, I understand the people who say, no, we can't lose Alex Caruso. He's so important to our culture, because guess what? He is. And he's the type of guy, if anything is going to rub off on any player, you don't mind it coming from Alex Caruso, because he's a player that has fought up to go through the G League. He gives everything out there on the court. So, like, he can play in any type of lineup. He just competes. And he's also added to his game in the way that he said he wanted to this offseason. So yeah. I love Alex Caruso. But at the same point, for a front office that gave up a lot of first-round picks to build this mediocre team, if you can recoup some of that, I understand having to weigh that as well. Because, listen, if you feel confident in your ability to draft in your scouting team, which that Bulls fans are going to be triggered to hear that, right? You may feel you can do that. And the thing with the Warriors too is that the Warriors can't offer any first round pick, I believe, till 2028, and they can't offer back-to-back picks. So if they're going to give 2 first round picks, it'll have to be 2028 and 2030. Yeah. Steph is going to be gone by then. You have a chance of that pick actually being pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the risk you're taking, right? Like, you're taking, I guess, what could be the future for what you know could affect the future.
True.
Right? Like, AC legitimately affects the future of your team if you're able to go out there and put really good pieces in place. I wonder if there is any validity, probably a lot less now since the news that we've gotten about Joel Embiid, pretty much, of Philly being willing to give up a first-round pick for DeMar DeRozan.
Well, remember, a team exec reached out like 35 minutes after the article went out and basically said, hey, you got too much dip on your chip, young fella. you saw that, right? Like, literally.
I didn't see the exec reach back out. Wait a minute.
The writer initially came out with the report.
Right.
And he posted it on Twitter. About 35 minutes later, he retweeted and said, a team exec had reached out to me. They have no plans on trading for DeMar DeRozan. So somebody called and was like, hey, you messing up the church's money, young fella. What you doing?
Was he the writer version of Colin Cowherd? Is that what we just got there?
Basically, bro. Jonathan Zagul looking bro.
Wow. Shots fired on the pod. That's crazy. Hold up. That's insane. But no, yeah. Well, that changes that dramatically. But I guess I'm fine with recouping the draft capital, but at this point, is the bigger question on you developing young players that you have.
Yeah.
We've got something in Kobe White here for sure now. I think everybody can see it now. Nobody has a question. It took a while to get there. He's still 2 years under 25. He's got a long way to go, guys. You know what I mean? Do you feel like something's developing in Ayo Dosunmu that maybe is more consistent if he's out on the court a lot? Do you feel like without DeMar DeRozan in the building, because I don't know how you hold on to DeMar. It's not DeMar hate. I just don't know if you're not going to work a contract out, how you just go into the end of the season and say, all right, bye, DeMar.
Can I add some color to that?
Let's do it.
Well, keep in mind, because teams that are interested in DeMar DeRozan are probably going to be teams that are near championship level. They may already be over the luxury tax. So the Bulls may be playing the odds to say that even if he does hit unrestricted free agency, they may have to facilitate a sign and trade if they really want to get him on their books. So maybe the Bulls are playing the options.
Yeah, maybe you're playing that option. I guess playing the long game on that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's taking a risk. Let me be clear. It's taking a
huge
risk.
risk, though. Yeah,
that's taking a risk. But
for a wrong side of 30 player, that is a massive risk to take because a lot of teams will be like, "Yeah, we'll sign you for this much," and then you put ink to paper, and then they're like, "Nah, actually, never mind." You got
also the writer was Brent Siegel was the initial writer, and he said he was recently the exact articles sources recently shared that the Philadelphia 76ers are willing to offer a first round pick. Then he updated the article and said the Philadelphia 76ers are not actively pursuing DeMar DeRozan. And then he threw this at the end of it.
You know what though?
Team sources not authorized to speak publicly told us. So he basically was like, it wasn't.
You know what though? I respect him.
I respect it.
For saying my bad. I was wrong. People who I believe to be so he. What I would think is he's talking to somebody pretty high in the Sixers organization, and somebody higher up was like, "What are you doing?"
Exactly. That's what I mean. The call came through. Hey, you got too much dip on your chip. What are you doing here? You got too much dip on your chip.
You know he name dropped the media. He was like, Brett Brown told me. What do you want? Brett Brown told me. Like, Brett Brown. Wait a minute. Is he even still here? Brett, what are you doing in the building?
Give me your key card.
Give me a key card. Brett Brown's walking in making calls from the Sixers organization.
He probably got kicked out the building as fast as Vince McMahon out of WWE.
Hey man, listen.
Bro, they removed his history. He's the owner of the company. They removed him from the history books of WWE.
Hey, bro, and you know what they do whenever the WWE's in trouble. I don't know if you saw this on what was that Friday when Rock's coming back. Whenever there's trouble with the WWE, bring back the Rock. Finally. All right, let's get to this next topic. Bulls did not have a good week this week. If you were betting on them, you were having a bad week, basically. That's a lesson you should have learned 3 years ago. But we do have to tell you guys all about FanDuel because FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. And ladies and gentlemen, it is officially Super Bowl week. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. And I do that over on FanDuel. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end your season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on the Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports partner of the NFL.
All right, Pat. Last topic of the day before we get up out of here. So the Chicago Bulls last week went 1-2 with losses to both the Toronto Raptors and the Sacramento Kings. They did get a win against the Charlotte Hornets. This upcoming week, we have 3 games on the docket. Minnesota Timberwolves on Tuesday, Memphis on Thursday, and then on Saturday we face the Orlando Magic before we come back for a brief road trip before we get 8 days off for the All-Star break. How you feeling, Pat?
Bad. Not good right now after the week we just saw. I mean, like, we've seen now 2 weeks of basketball, and yes, one of those weeks went 2-2, but you had 2 opportunities in both the games you lost to win. We're up in, but well, no, I say one opportunity. We're up in that Phoenix game the week before this, right? Mm-hmm. The Lakers game you pretty much didn't even compete in, except for the first quarter. But and now you follow that up with a 1-2 week. Not to say you're not going to have bad weeks, but it just feels like same old Bulls. And this is why a lot of people are, kind of off of this team right now. This is why in the 3rd year of this thing, nobody's paying any attention to what the Chicago Bulls are doing because you're like I said earlier in the show, right? If you look at the offensive rating from the last 3 years, and yes, in year 1, it started off so much better. I think through the amount of games we were at like 30, 39 and 14 or 15, something like that at this point. but the offensive rating was 113. Your defensive rating was 111. That's one bucket of margin. It's not good enough to be consistently winning over 500. We know how that season ended. Your second season, you pretty much were a play-in 500 team. I believe your margin of error was 111 to 113 in that second season. You go into your third season, your offensive rating, very similar. All 3 years, you're dealing with the same thing. So that's why people are looking at where we're heading now with how this Bulls team has played over the last couple of months. Is like, this feels very similar. Like, it feels like the Bulls we've watched every single year are creeping back into the picture where, yep, we're going to have that hot month. Oh, here's the stretch. Here's where it gets hot. That was December. January's cooling off a lot. Maybe we can get back into this, but you've got some tough teams on the docket coming up. This is not an easy week for the Chicago Bulls, and the problem is there doesn't feel like any week can be an easy week for the Chicago Bulls, because if there were one, I would have said that was probably last week.
Yeah, and we have the 8th toughest schedule over the course of February, so it's going to be a tough month overall for the Bulls. Now, they do get some rest in there because of the All-Star break. But the thing is, I'm tired of hearing this thing, and they can, right? I understand it, and I believe it, and we've seen it. They can compete with anyone on any given night, but they are drastically inconsistent with some of the areas. Their defense isn't always as consistent. Like, how many times have we seen the Bulls, like that last game against the Kings? They played some of the best defense I saw the third and half the fourth quarter, period. But the fact that you had to ramp up to that is really what put you out of place of being able to win that game. So I think if the Bulls, and that's part of why an identity is important. And here's the thing, I will say this, and this is not, again, to get into if they're better or worse without Zach, but this gives them a chance to really forge an identity over the last third of the season if they really want to try to do something. So,
well, and I think the thing is too, right? You got to get back to a point where you're finishing things out. The thing about December that was a breath of fresh air was the Bulls are building big leagues but finishing them. Yeah. We haven't seen that in the month of January. Bulls have built some big leagues in the month of January. They've blown almost all of them. And the Bulls are a much better clutch team this year. I believe that they are a 56% clutch win percentage team this season. So that's a lot better than where you were last season. But the problem is, right, you're still getting into so many clutch games when you're getting out to really big leads. That's what you don't want to see this Bulls team do, because when you get into close games, like I said, with the offensive and defensive ratings, the point of all of that is you've got one basket of margin most of these seasons.
Yeah.
You've got one shot that either wins the game or loses the game for you. And this Bulls team is not a good enough team for that one shot to be on our side every year.
The Bulls got some things they need to figure out. And listen, we're running out of time for it all to come together this season. But I tell you what, the growth of Kobe has been great to watch this season. I love seeing it. I love what he's been able to do. Ayo Dosunmu really being back to impact player after the sophomore slump. He's really bounced back. Love seeing that. This team needs to continue doing in control and it's in their control, how they play things like that. And let's just finish the season strong. Wherever the chips fall, they fall. Like, at this point, it is what it is. We own our own first round pick outright. Yeah, it's slated to be a weak draft, but hey, whatever.
I'll ask you this before we get up out of here. Right, we're 50 games through the season. That means there's 22 games left. 32 games left.
Yeah,
math, right?
You got to carry that one, bro.
Quiet,
you got to carry that one.
Got to carry that one there. How many of those games would you have to see the Chicago Bulls win for you to say maybe there's something here that's different?
I don't think it's a number of wins for me because this team is taking so much. I mean, if everybody gets healthy, maybe that expectation will change. But I think I've already seen enough to say that there's something here. It's just, what do you have to do to bring it out? There's something here.
But is it vastly different? I think Kobe's, I don't even know if I can say Kobe's different. Kobe's a breath of fresh air, but we had a guy that could put up 25.
True, but it's not just putting up 25.
He's impacting the game
as a leader.
Ways, yeah.
He's a better passer than what Zach LaVine is. His basketball IQ is higher than Zach. I'm not saying that Kobe White is like a player all of a sudden that if you build around him as your number one, you're going to go far. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that he's giving you one. Ayo's giving you something to look at as well. Julian Phillips, I'll say this. He's giving you some flashes to say, hey, a season worth of work. Let's see what he can bring off the bench next season. But I think if either way, we're in for an offseason where I hope the front office makes some moves to put this team in a much better place. But I will say that we have some pieces now that really, to me, they give you some bright spots. They give you bright spots.
Yeah, it's it's gonna be. I just feel like you got to start winning. Like, even if at the minimum you win 20 of these games, you go 20-12.
If you win 20 of these games over the,
well, I mean, but realistically, right? That's 43-41.
True.
Right, you're a
and the Bulls have been playing close to 60% win percentage the last month. So even with the losses,
right, like this, that's it. It's but like that would be the thing where I'd be like, okay, maybe there's something here that Kobe White brings that changes the ways of this Chicago Bulls team over the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what I want to see to finish this out. I mean, it's gonna be a tough week. We got All-Star break coming up, trade deadlines coming up, and I don't know who the reporter is that reported it was gonna be quiet. The Bulls would be quiet this trade deadline. He was not wrong. He must have knew something was coming with LaVine's foot. My goodness, bro.
Yeah, it is what it is there, bro. But we'll be right here to cover it all. I mean, listen. People thought it was going to be a quiet offseason when we traded for Vooch. So maybe AK could pull something out. We no longer think that AK is Batman, but maybe he can restore some faith.
I don't even know if AK is the Riddler at this point. Like
the Riddler is one of the most thought out and planned people of all. Like at this point, he's not. I don't even a Batman villain.
Is he the Penguin? Is he the Penguin?
No, not even that. Penguin's smart too in the comics. He's
Penguin good with money.
He's Professor Pig. That's who he is. So
he's what's the rubber dude? He's Elastic Man, bro. Where he not really sure if he a villain or not. He's just like sometimes I'm a villain.
He lives in an existential crisis, and it's hilarious, bro. That's funny.
Oh God! Hey, follow us on everything at Locked On Bulls. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Y'all stay safe out there, Bulls fans.
You guys can follow me at CEO Haize. And thank you guys for tuning in and making Locked On Bulls your first listen every single day. We are free and available on every podcasting app and platform of your choice, as well as YouTube and the Odyssey app. For Pat, this has been Locked On Bulls. I'm Haize. Peace, y'all.
Peace. Professor Pig is crazy.
That's crazy, right?
That was insane, man.
But deep cut.
But